Welcome back to Normal Island. I'm Curtis Daly, and on Fridays I'm usually joined by Sarah Delau, but she is away. But don't worry, we are still in very good company. Taking over Sarah for tonight is Noffel. Noffel, how are you doing? Seems we've got a black screen already.
Uh,
So the reason why we're late today is because we had a hell of a lot of tech issues, and it seems like we've already gone off to a flying start. What I'm going to do though, because obviously we don't want you to watch a black screen, I'm going to go in through the story, and hopefully Noffel will be back. Now, coming up on tonight's show, Trump slaps tariffs on an island full of penguins. The godfather of AI calls for socialism, and Musk's money couldn't buy the Wisconsin election. As always, remember to like the stream, and if you're not a subscriber, then please hit that button. We've had some really good success over the last couple of days, adding 3,000 subscribers in just under a week. We're now over 23,000. It's absolutely incredible. To our first story. Donald Trump's mass global tariffs continues with one of his tariff policies affecting an island full of penguins. Yes, you heard that right. The Trump administration has placed a 10% reciprocal tariff on the Heard and McDonald's Islands, which are external territories of Australia near Antarctica, home to penguins, seals, and glaciers. The islands are entirely uninhabited by humans and only accessible via a 2-week voyage from Perth via a boat. Nowhere on Earth is safe, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said on Thursday. April Fool's was 4 days ago. Okay, this is real. Now let's go through the rest of Trump's tariffs, which he's dubbed Liberation Day. So as you can see on screen right now, you can see some hefty tariffs, including China and the European Union. The UK with less than EU with 10%. It's quite funny that Israel has 17%. I thought that was funny. Quite surprised. Notably, Russia wasn't on the list. But when asked, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said this was because existing US sanctions on Russia preclude any meaningful trade, and noting that Cuba, Belarus, and North Korea were also not included. But, as the BBC reports, nations with even less trade, I'll start that one again. Nations with even less trade with the US, such as Syria, which exported $11 million of products last year, according to UN data quoted by Trading Economics, were on the list. Now, Taiwan, I think that's a wild one, because if you don't remember, Joe Biden stopped the import of chips from Taiwan. These chips are basically essential to technological development. Biden's reasoning was national security. Whether you believe that or not, well, you know. But his response, I think, was a good policy. It was build them in the US. He created hundreds of thousands of high-paying jobs. And then Trump got in and he ripped that up, proving that he doesn't care about American jobs. But now he slapped tariffs on Taiwan. Okay, I'll ask you the same question as I asked Noffel, right? It's economic terrorism. Trump isn't doing these policies based on sound economics. So what is the purpose of the administration starting a global trade war?
So obviously the ideology comes from Trump did talk about this, by the way. This is not just necessarily something new. He's actually been recorded talking about this, I think, either since the 70s or the 80s. Not that he's the greatest economic mind, but tariffs can be used as a good thing. They can be used to obviously protect certain industries, which isn't a bad thing, right? So if you there was this whole thing with like Canada and like dairy tariffs, right? It's fine for Canada to protect its dairy industry. So they put tariffs on the US so that zone doesn't get flooded with American dairy. So in those issues, it's fine, right? You might want to tariff other car companies potentially as well to make sure that your industry and your jobs in your country is protected. These types of things are fine. But what Trump is doing, this economic terrorism, it's just stupid and ridiculous. Using tariffs to protect industries is something that's quite normal. But to use it to try and bring back industries, yeah, there might be some jobs here and there that might come back because the cost is just simply more effective. most of the time it just simply doesn't make sense, right?
Mm.
America is never going to grow bananas. America is never going to grow coffee. There are lots of industries out there where the production exists only in one place in the world. My dad used to work for a company who used to make this like pressure thing. I don't know what it was. It cost millions of quid to make, and companies all over the world bought it. It's the only company in the entire world who makes this specific thing. So Donald Trump is giving them two choices. We're going to tariff you unless you, or you come and make a factory in the US and bring jobs there. But again, that still doesn't make sense because that would still require them to have production in two different places. And it would
Yeah.
require them to either shut down production there or create create two production facilities, again, just increasing costs. And again, the idea that America is trying to bring industries back that they've never had, right? It just doesn't make sense. They're not going to grow
You
coffee.
also
They're not going to
can't.
grow bananas, and it's just stupid. It's just putting prices up for
Well, the
lots of
thing is, though,
consumers.
first of all, in order to bring back industry, as you say, you're going to have a huge industrial strategy to do that. You don't just slap on tariffs. But also, the problem is, even if you were to bring back American jobs, which is obviously something that should be done, but let's say they import things from China, right? And America tries to do it themselves. They need to understand that prices are going to be higher because the labor costs are going to be higher. They have, I mean, I would say still pretty weak unions in America, but it's going to be stronger unions. You're going to have to expect to pay more for stuff if they're made in America. So if you're going to slap on tariffs, which is going to increase the prices, which is going to increase the prices, then Americans can't then go, okay, well, we're going to consume elsewhere, we're going to buy American, and it's not going to be any cheaper. So there's no incentive for the American people to go, well, because the cost of these particular goods coming from China is now more expensive because of the tariffs. I'm going to go buy it from America, and that's if there is even an American industry to provide it. They're still paying more for it because, again, higher labor costs, which you should be paying more because I think that if someone's making something for you, they should have a living wage.
Yeah, exactly. That's the stupidest part of this. There are things that can be made in America that could be made that aren't being made, which might not affect the costs necessarily, but for so many products, it will be, right? If you're going to be importing a t-shirt from Vietnam or Bangladesh or China, wherever it might be, and it costs 50 cents to make it there, but then in America, it costs, I don't know, $2, that the cost of production goes up, fourfold. So you have a choice between just simply paying for a product, which is now tariffed at, what's China's tariff? Did they put it up to like 60% or something? I can't remember. Oh no, like they said that they got tariff 60 something percent, which we'll come to obviously later. But the actual tariff is like 37%, I think. So either way, you're just putting the price of the product up either way. It just does not make sense because there are countries out there who just make things so cheaply that even if you bring them to America, you're still putting up the prices massively because the cost of labor, the cost of resources, and this just disrupts loads of supply chains as well. And this is probably one of the worst parts of what Trump is doing, right? Because if you're a country who's just been slapped with a 20-30% tariff, what can happen now is that those countries are going to look for somewhere else to either sell their stuff or buy other things from, which are going to disrupt other supply chains. And we had this after the Ukraine war. A lot of people don't remember this, but I think it was Egypt who bought something like 80 to 90% of its wheat from Ukraine. And because these supply chains were so messed up, because suddenly all these tariffs and all these sanctions and stuff were on, and then supply chains were disrupted, you had other countries then trying to buy more wheat from different places, and it massively inflated the prices for a lot of poor countries beyond a reasonable amount of inflation. I think Egypt's price of wheat went up by something like 2 to 3 times the original cost just in the space of like a year. So there's so many unforeseen consequences of what Donald Trump has done. He's not going to bring back the industries that he wants, and plus he's kicking tons of people out of the country, right? They don't even have the amount of people that they would need in the country to open up these industries anyway. It doesn't make sense.
I mean, we covered on Wednesday that Keir Starmer has continued to grovel over the US, right? Whereby he basically slashed taxes on tech giants in order to reduce, by the way, not remove, but reduce the tariffs. And as you saw in the graph we showed earlier, tariffs on European Union nations are 20%. The UK has 10%, which is of course better than 20%. But there are now people, particularly on the right wing, calling this a victory for Brexit. What are your thoughts on that?
No, it's completely stupid. The UK is now lonelier than ever. We've put ourselves in a position where we're outside of the trading bloc that we used to be in, and we still don't have the best relationship with them necessarily. Made slightly better recently by Starmer, with some credit in terms of the things that's happening with issues around defense in Ukraine. However, we've now got these extra 10% tariffs, 25% tariffs on car manufacturing.
Yep.
1 in 8 cars that we produce in the UK go to America. So that's 1/8 of our entire car manufacturing
10,000, I think
industry.
it's 10,000 jobs are
Yeah,
at
yeah.
risk in the car
It's
manufacturing business.
it's quite a lot of jobs. And now we're lonelier than ever because the EU just announced today that they have no intention of revisiting the Windsor framework anytime soon. We have this scraping for a deal with America, which, by the way, the idea that we couldn't have a trade deal with America even when we were in the EU, because that's not how the EU works. They don't exclude you from trading with anyone else. You can still have individual trading deals. There's no reason why we couldn't live in an alternative reality where we were still in the EU and we also had a trade deal with America. We can have all of these things. Now
The
we
thing
have
is,
none of them.
the reason why we didn't have trade deals with America was because it wasn't worth it. Because obviously,
Yeah.
having a frictionless trading bloc. Look, I understand the sentiment of being angry at the European Union. I've said publicly before that when the referendum was called, I was on both sides. At one point, I was going to vote for Brexit. At one point, I was going to vote for the EU. Went back to Brexit and stuff. But what really convinced me at the end of it was, one, there was a lack of a left-wing campaign, but also there was no economic, logical argument I heard that we could leave the EU, because we were going to trade with the EU regardless of being inside or outside the EU, but being in the EU meant that 50% of a trade was frictionless. And actually, the reason why we didn't trade with places like America and other nations was because we were getting a far better deal with the EU. Not, as you noted, that we weren't allowed to. We didn't want to trade with America with chlorinated chicken and lower standards, safety standards, even workers' protection standards, whereas we're getting a far better deal with the EU. So and also what's noted that outside of the EU now, we've not had a proper US trade deal, which is what was promised, right? We said we're going to get loads of trade deals. Where's this big US trade deal we have? I don't really see it, apart from reducing tariffs by 10%. And the cost for that is this isn't a no cost situation. He's reducing taxes on tech giants, which no one supports, by the way. No one wants that. We should be increasing taxes on these people, not reducing it.
Yeah, not only that as well, it's just worth noting. I'm not sure if you covered it on Wednesday exactly. I can't remember. They're pushing around this Online Safety Act too. Did you talk about that on Wednesday?
No, we didn't. So please, enlighten us.
Oh yeah, so the Online Safety Act was brought in 2023 by the Conservatives. There's some critiques to it, but it was actually overall, I think, a good policy. It reined in online companies, so everything from social media to other websites, to mostly protect children, but there's some protections for adults. So it puts in place fines if companies allow children, if they're on the apps and they know that they're children, to be DM'd by adults, right? So simple things like that. It made stuff like deepfakes when it comes to certain types of things like adult content, like that would be illegal. It forces companies to take down people who are promoting posts about terrorism, and just loads of good things that's in the Online Safety Act. But these campaigners also, who are working with the ADF, which is the Alliance for Defending Freedom, they're trying to bully our government into either changing or getting rid of the Online Safety Act because they're saying it's against free speech and all these types of things, which there's nothing in there about free speech. It's just about making things that are currently illegal not to also be online. That's all it's essentially. There's no new law that's been brought in to say this thing that you used to be able to say you can no longer say. It's a case of the middle ground of, yes, social media companies are not publishers, but they still need a little bit more responsibility for what they're allowing on their platform. And they're bullying our government. And this group called the ADF, who are working with the Trump administration, this is the same group, by the way, who helped overturn Roe v. Wade in America. They're putting millions into the UK. This is the same group, which is very topical, for the woman who just got charged today for protesting at an abortion center. They're using her as a weapon. They're funding her legal fees. And they're coming after abortion. And this same group, by the way, also endorses Nigel Farage. Just saying.
Yes. Yeah.
But to go back to the other point as well, why would we want a trade deal with America? They have just been bullying their two closest trading partners, right? Mexico and Canada. Trump keeps going on about NAFTA. It was the worst deal ever, yada, yada, yada. And then he redid the deal the last time he was in office, and now he's back saying it's a terrible deal. So
I'm
why
so
would we do a
glad.
trade deal?
Well, I'm so glad you brought up NAFTA. Right. So one of the biggest issues of the 2016 campaign between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump was NAFTA and other trade deals, which were trade deals where basically we shipped I say we as American, whereas the Americans shipped millions of jobs abroad. It basically ripped up any sort of corporate accountability. These were terrible trade deals, which the Democrats and Republicans both supported. It was completely bipartisan. And Hillary Clinton was on the campaign trail saying, NAFTA's amazing. This is really, really good. And Donald Trump, even in 2016, was reaching in just slightly into economic populism. He was saying that NAFTA is a disaster, just like Bernie Sanders was saying. All these trade deals are shipping American jobs away. Now, obviously, those of us on the left at the time were saying, he's lying. This guy's a billionaire who represents the corporations and the billionaire class, right? They love these trade deals. He's just saying that because he knows that he's a populist. He can tap in. Populist is probably not even the right word. Right-wing populism, using that term is probably not the right word, but whatever. He tapped into something that people felt. They were sick and tired of establishment policies. And of course, Donald Trump won the election. Now we're seeing the exact same policies that he's attacked the Democrats, Hillary Clinton, the so-called establishment on. He's doing the same thing because he was never against NAFTA. He was never against all these trade deals. He probably just wants more favorable trade deals than the corporations. He probably thought they didn't go far enough.
Yeah, so as well, because this is the most important point of it, because your original question right at the beginning is like, why is all this being done? And we need to finish off that point. So Canada and again Mexico got bullied by Donald Trump. He said, do these things as I'm going to put tariffs on you. They did them. He still put tariffs on them. So this isn't necessarily just about, just getting something that's fairer. It's about getting something that's unfair. So you mentioned Israel earlier as well. I was following Israeli media about this, and Bezalel Smotrich, the very horrible man who is the finance minister in Israel, immediately alleviated all tariffs on all American products coming into the country. They did this like the day before the tariffs were coming in. And it just shows you, like, again, it's not even necessarily about getting a fairer deal, because they're pulling up this idea that they've been treated unfairly. It's not that. They just want to get and use their economic power and their military power to bully people and bully countries into just getting everything cheaper for them, essentially. That is all that they're doing. They just want to bully everyone so they can use their economic power and just try and make America great again and make America rich again, while everyone else in the entire world suffers because they're allowed to collect tariffs, they're allowed to collect income taxes from all this trade, but they want no barriers between anything that they send to these other countries. That's essentially what they're trying to do. And as you said, Starmer, 800 million quid, digital tax, bye-bye. You've got Smotrich in Israel saying, I'll get rid of all tariffs immediately. And then Vietnam trying to do the same again today. So he's getting essentially what he wants from some countries, and everybody else loses out in the meantime. It's just all about making America rich, and even though they don't really need it, because they're still the richest country in the world.
Well, the big problem here, though, because he's a throwback to like early colonial mindset, which is that we need to be the only player in town. We need to basically pillage every other country and use the resources for our own gain. The problem, though, is, and as we kind of pointed out earlier, one country can't manufacture and export everything. You have to import some stuff. If you start bullying and destroying other countries, how are you going to import their stuff? And I wanted to talk about Taiwan, right? Because as I mentioned earlier, Taiwan, obviously, they were making some really important chips that are really important for modern technology. And of course, Joe Biden banned the imports from Taiwan because he said it's to do with security. Probably part of the reason, but also I say largely the reason was because they don't want China to succeed technologically. Let's be honest, that's kind of the reason. But then obviously Biden's response was, okay, we're going to block imports of these chips. We're going to make our own. That's great, right? But then Trump has stopped that and then slapped on tariffs on Taiwan. So in that instance where he's trying to be the big man, the bully, that also doesn't help America, because how are they going to get their chips? If he's not supporting it domestically in America, and he's also not supporting the imports of it, that leaves America behind. And of course, this is the age of technology. To grow the economy and to grow your influence on the world, you need to have the best technology available. China's doing that, and America's shooting themselves in the foot.
Yeah, it's actually worth noting as well, speaking of Taiwan, that Pete Hegseth, the guy who's now in charge of the US military, he mentioned the other day for the first time Trump has said this, or anyone from the administration, that they would be kind of inclined to protect Taiwan just in case China does anything. Now, we didn't expect them to do this. And obviously that ties into the tariffs, right? Because they think what they're doing is like they're still trying to bully Taiwan like any other country. They have already got and secured some funding from these semiconductor companies to build factories in the US. So they're saying at the same time and hinting that China don't come after them in the meantime, because we might protect them, we might not. And also, by the way, Taiwan, give us loads of money and loads of investment so you can build factories here. And then ultimately, probably what would happen is if that when all that investment comes and those factories get built, they'll probably just leave Taiwan out to dry. They don't actually care. They just care about the semiconductors.
But I'd also say that's the same for the Democrats, and that's Western foreign policy for you, isn't it? Like, it's not unique that Trump, doesn't care about Taiwan, but Joe Biden does. They're all doing it for the same reasons. It's essentially pillage their resources and leave them out to dry.
I want to mention this one comment as well from Les, because I think it is actually like quite a summary of essentially what is happening. So Trump is using mafia extortion tactics in order to get his cut, and this is very true, right? So this is classically what the mafia did, and very topically as well. My partner is from Sicily, where the mafia still do operate. Is you go to a business and say, "Oh, give us money, or you might not be protected," and they'll be like, "Oh, protected from who? Who do we need protection from? Oh, from us." So that's all the mafia used to do, right? We won't burn you down, but we'll protect you from ourselves.
If your restaurant caught on fire, but who's going to do
exactly.
that?
It is mafia tactics. It's almost like oligarchical as well, because while all this is happening, his friends are getting much richer from all of these things as well.
Oligarchical mafia, basically.
Yeah, essentially.
All right, we're going to leave tariffs there, and we're going to move on to our second story of the evening. Geoffrey Hinton, who was known as the godfather of AI, stunned Robert Peston with his very short and succinct answer on dealing with declining living standards.
That productivity gain may not be fairly distributed among citizens, and it could again simply accrue to a few owners, a few billionaires at the top. How do we make sure that these gains are properly distributed and we get out of this awful slump of stagnating living standards?
Socialism.
It's just as simple as that, is it? Where you just need proper socialist leadership.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Short, but definitely sweet. Lewis, with the use of technology that is replacing jobs via automation, AI is the newest tool that's being used by capital at the behest of workers. Many of us, including the godfather of AI, are suggesting socialism.
I just want to double check, and people can confirm in the comments, because the video cut out for me for a second. When he said socialism, did everybody actually hear that part? Because that part actually cut out for me. Not sure if it cut out for anybody else. So just in the comments, just let me know.
It played fully for me. I'm assuming it probably played fully for everyone else.
Just want to double check. So I actually sent you this video. I don't know if I was the first person to send you it. I just found it quite stunning, right? Because I feel like sometimes as leftists, we sometimes kind of go around questions sometimes when it comes to, how do we help society? How do we change society? How do we get out of the system? And sometimes we'll kind of skirt around socialism or the word of it sometimes, right? And people will be like, oh, let's tax the rich, let's create these systems and yada, yada, yada. And we're kind of sometimes almost saying everything but socialism because the word is stigmatized in a way with a lot of people. And we know it can sometimes scare people, but I love this bluntness.
Yeah.
I know, obviously, maybe he's read Aaron Bastani's book. I think you have too, right? What's it called again? The
Fully Automated Luxury Communism. Very
yeah,
good
which
book,
is
by the way.
which, correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't read it. It's all about kind of what he's what this conversation's about AI and technology getting to the point where they can just do everything. Where what are we going to do with humans? Well, the only way to really do it is to move towards a leftist society in some way. I do think sometimes technologists kind of almost get ahead of themselves in a way. I've noticed this too. Usually the people who are within these projects, whether it's some big flashy AI tech CEO or even someone like this gentleman here, they know what the potential of the technology is, but often every prediction that people have made about technology has not necessarily turned out to what it's been. You can look back at the 90s at the early internet boom. And I know there's this journalist in America called Kara Swisher, and she talks about this all the time. She has literally known and either wrote a book about or included in her books since the 90s almost every tech person that's ever existed that's been somebody. And pretty much every prediction that they make almost just never comes true. And, you'll hear people talk about something as simple as, oh, there's this new AI tool and it can read chest x-rays, and this is how much better it does it than an actual doctor. But usually, more often than not, all the information is just coming from those people who are trying to create that product or trying to sell that product, right? It's not necessarily the way it's actually going to be. I feel like we'll see more of what the technology will offer. What I am scared of is that the technology will get too far ahead within a capitalist system to the point where people are suffering for such a long period of time before people finally realize that we need to move towards a new system.
I just want to say, I'm glad it just shows how aligned we are. Your first thought was, I'm so glad he was so blunt, because I was thinking about this and I was saying, look, traditionally socialists and those on the left have tried to capitulate on issues, have tried to fill the void that has been left of social democracy, right? We talk about healthcare, but we talk about inequality, we talk about investment, all good policies and good things, but we don't talk about socialism. And I suspect, and I think this is probably true if I'm honest, and I think what Hinton did here was excellent, that as politics becomes not just even more right-wing, but even more extreme, right? I think the left needs to respond by being more radical. I no longer think we can take on the US an oligarchy and becoming a fascist state by saying, let's just, introduce a wealth tax and rebalance the economy. Good policies, but to fight these existential crises with that, I don't think is enough. I think we need to be talking about socialism. And I think it can work in the context of technology. You're also right about, in terms of technology, right? A lot of people think that technology will kind of set us free, right? We just need to improve our technological understanding of the world and we can solve issues. It's not true. The issue is the politics behind it. So, one anecdote I've got was that back in, we're talking about the 40s, 50s, right? There were Republicans who were calling for 3 months paid holiday leave. Modern America doesn't have that. That's Republicans calling for it. People were far more radical in the politics back then. And obviously technology wasn't as advanced as it was today. And the point is, the issue isn't about trying to improve technology to improve people's lives. We need to change the politics behind it. Because what's happening now is, and let's talk about AI, for example, these technological advancements can do amazing things. But where is the wind blowing at the moment? It's not good. We're moving towards, and I referenced this on Wednesday, a techno-feudal state, right? Rentier capitalism. We're moving beyond traditional capitalism, which is now about using technology to enslave people, to become serfs. You own nothing anymore, whether it's streaming services that they can just stream it back to you, whether it's using technology to find out information about you and do targeted ads. This is extremely dangerous. And the only way to combat this is socialism. We need to have a democratic mandate. We need the democratic control of the economy and democratic control of technology. Look, I have a big problem with generative AI, right? I think ChatGPT can be a useful tool. I think some of the generative tools within Photoshop, for example, can be useful as long as the tools are helping you create something bigger or something else. But my problem is creativity with AI. Examples where you can just type in a prompt and you can say, make me an image. And it scours the web using existing human-made art, by the way, to provide you with something. That's stealing, right? If you produce artwork and you put it on the internet, you're going to have AI scan your own work, give it to someone else for free, and that's your labor that wasn't compensated for it. So this is a huge problem, isn't it? It's the technology is the issue, but the politics hasn't changed.
Yeah, it's definitely the issue. Because I still don't necessarily buy into the idea as well. I think we could say confidently that we could have the technology in the future to create the society that we want, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen, right?
Exactly,
Right now, we technically do have a system where we could still fix everything in theory, right? We know its faults and we know why we don't apply the system in the way that we could to fix all the problems that we have, because right now we know that the capitalists at the top, right, and I'm talking about obviously again the wealthy and the richest, right? We know that people like everyone from Elon Musk to Bezos to the richest people in this country, they can see the world literally dying, right? They can see the suffering, they can see the inequality, they can see that the system is benefiting them and we're all suffering. But for their capitalist world to continue, they should be incentivized, in theory, under the theory of capitalism, right? That they should be incentivized to fix that system so they can continue to exist. But they're not. They're continuing on this self-destructive path because they're incapable of changing the system that benefits them, despite the fact it's the thing that's ultimately going to destroy us all. So this idea that if we just had the technology that ultimately we'd be able to then create the system that we wanted is also faulty based off of that same logic, because right now we have a system where we could fix everything, but there are parts of the system that doesn't allow us to do that. So yeah, that's a bit pessimistic, I know, but that's the reality of what I see, because the people that we're relying on to create these technologies are the worst people in the world.
It's why, and Specs just said it in the chat, but it's why it's socialism or barbarism. Look, I think when we talk about capitalism as socialist, as a Marxist myself, I won't even consider myself an anti-capitalist. I'm a post-capitalist, because it's not about trying to destroy capitalism. It's about understanding that capitalism is on its way out. For a lot of things, that capitalism was necessary for the Industrial Revolution. That doesn't mean that people weren't exploited. Of course they were. But as Marx says, basically capitalism was the next step after feudalism, and socialism is just the natural step after capitalism. And this is the point. It's like it's hard to communicate that, but it's not about saying we need to rip down capitalism because it's a bad system. We need to say basically capitalism, whether we like it or not, is going away. The thing is though, what replaces it is the question. It's not about destroying capitalism, it's about what we're going to replace it with. And currently we are on our way to a techno-feudal system where you own nothing and markets are no longer providing goods and services, but you're being provided with rent. And you're seeing that. And AI and the technological advancement is only going to do that even more. Because we're now going to be renting us, not just renting ourselves, but anything we need is going to have to be purchased, and you don't even get to own it. So that's why we kind of need to basically say it is socialism or barbarism. We need to be looking at economies which have democratic control, and AI should have a democratic mandate. Therefore, when someone produces something through AI, you have some kind of reward scheme for those that inputted into the creation of it. There needs to be some sort of sharing of wealth, and you can only do that by democratic accountability and the democratization of the economy. And it's not a question of being, I don't know, like, oh wow, you're a bloody socialist, whether we need it or not. It's a question of it's necessary to take the step towards a democratization of the system. Otherwise, we're going to go steamroll to barbarism. And unfortunately, it looks like we're going that way. That's not, I wouldn't say that's a particularly pessimistic looking at things. I think that is just what is happening.
I wanted to point this out because I screenshotted it earlier, so I haven't read the full article, but I saw it in The Guardian, which was climate crisis on track to destroy capitalism, warns top insurer. And they say action is urgently needed to save the conditions under which markets and civilization itself can operate. Because essentially the argument is, because again, I just briefly looked at it, is that it's almost like touching onto what I just said. The system is currently destroying itself because the cost to fix the damage, because it's an insurance company, that's why they're writing this article, the cost to fix the damage that is being done and is about to be done to the world will be so insurmountable that capitalism itself will just simply collapse. And then obviously advocating that's going to then transition into a lovely socialist utopia or a communist utopia, whatever it is that you're supporting, because at that point the amount of damage that's going to be done might not be even a world worth saving, which sounds very pessimistic, which is why we need to urgently support what we believe in and advocate for it and organize. Because if we get to that point where capitalism collapses under the idea of an environmental crisis that is so insurmountable that it will be simply unfathomable to fix the situation, it might be too late for all of us. And again, I'm not being, doom and gloom, like apocalyptic. I'm just being, honest and serious. This is where we're at. So we need to, light our asses on fire. Everyone who's watching this needs to feel the fire too. And we really, really need to push this more. And there are so many things that we can do towards it. Well, I swear this is not a plug for TL in any way. But one issue that we have, and I saw this as well in another article the other day, that because the world is so depressing right now, and yes, talking about mental health is a good thing and people being aware of it, but people have unfortunately taken the idea of like, I need to take care of myself because of my mental health, and the amount of people now just switching off from news as the world descends into fascism, as the world descends into all of these crazy right-wing culture wars that they've won, they are turning off because of the genocide in Gaza, because of the environment, because of climate change. So what do we do to reach these people if they're just simply switching off? And that's probably the biggest battle, and that needs to be the first one. We need to get people engaged.
I mean, I think you're going to see more and more people, this guy in insurance or the captains of industry, for want of a better term, they are going to start understanding, even though these are people who benefit from the system of capitalism, are going to start seeing the contradictions of the system. And that is how really we transition from different systems. How do we get from feudalism to capitalism? Because feudalism could not sustain itself under its own system. It was essentially, there were far more emerging markets. I mean, markets have always existed in some form, but there were more emerging markets under feudalism. And basically, the elites within feudalism were starting to be held back because they realized if we can try and basically increase the influence of markets and capital, we'll become richer. And and feudalism was essentially holding countries back, was stopping countries from becoming wealthier. And that is why we transitioned to capitalism, because then capitalism then sort of turbocharged, for again, late stage capitalism anyway, the Industrial Revolution. Again, there were things about capitalism which were necessary, but now we're at a point where capitalism is falling under its own weight, and that's often how systems transition. Now, the difference is, and what Karl Marx says is, every system that we transition from has always been a minority revolution, which is basically the feudalism is obviously an elite system, it's for feudal lords, but the merchants who kind of rebelled against the system, what we now call as capitalists, they're hardly working class people, ordinary people. They were also elite. So we transitioned from one elite system to another. This is the first point in history, and which is why Marx stresses this so much, is the first opportunity in history where it's a majority revolution, where we can actually transition from capitalism, but not to another elite system, but for a system that is majority rule, which is the working class. And that is why socialism is about democracy. It's essentially... There's no other way. We have to get all leftists on board and say we need to be more radical. And that doesn't mean we start then having every conversation starting with communism, and if you're not a communism, get out of my space. No, there's obviously room for trying to convince people. But really, our politics needs to develop with the times. The right and the far right have developed their politics. I mean, a lot of the right wing has become even more extreme, and the left needs to do the same. We of course need to defend nationalisation, increasing the minimum wage, supporting unions. We need to support that. But I think we're not going to be up to the task if we're just pushing milquetoast social democracy. What's the point in supporting milquetoast social democracy when capitalism is literally collapsing around our eyes? There will be no social democracy because capitalism won't be here to stay. So I'll reiterate, it's basically socialism or barbarism, which kind of, I know you said you don't want to plug turn left, but I'm going to do that. As you know, if you look at the tagline on our banner on our home screen, we are a media for socialism. So I do want to say, if you're enjoying the show, then please like the stream. And if you're not a subscriber, hit that button. Make sure the notification bell is on, because a lot of people don't know our content is going out. But if you want us to grow, especially in this political landscape, where we need the left to be more bold and more radical, then you can support us by going to turnleftmedia.co.uk/support. There is a link to our Patreon where you can support us monthly for as little as £3 per month, or follow the other link to give us a one-time contribution. Alternatively, you can become a YouTube member for just 99p. Now, on to our final story of the evening. On Sunday, the 29th of March, tech billionaire and chronically divorced MAGA bro, Elon Musk, gave a stark warning about the Wisconsin Supreme Court elections. He claims that, quote, this Wisconsin Supreme Court race might decide the future of America and Western civilization. Pretty dramatic stuff. Now, Elon spent around $20 million trying to buy the election for Republican candidate Brad Schmiel, and he personally handed out $1 million checks to loyal supporters of the movement. Now, trying to buy votes is obviously unethical and unconstitutional. Trying to buy elections is the very definition of corruption. Elon Musk said that he was going to give $2 million to voters and then corrected himself to supporters so he wouldn't get in trouble. I mean, that works well as long as the winner of your election lottery doesn't do something stupid like announce they were paid to vote for Schmiel.
My name's Ekaterina Diesler. I'm from Green Bay, Wisconsin. I did exactly what Elon Musk told everyone to do. Sign a petition, refer friends and family, vote, and now I have $1 million.
Incredible stuff. Really, it's just taking me back. Every time I watch that, I become breathless. Now, Musk quickly got the video taken down, obviously, and replaced the word vote. The word vote was omitted so that his supporters didn't get him in even more trouble. But your not guilty plea only works if you don't openly announce that you did the crime you're being accused of. And then things went from bad to worse for Musk, as despite the $20 million he spent trying to buy the election, Schmiel was beaten by Democratic candidate Susan Crawford, and not just beaten, but beaten by a whole 10 points, which is a resounding victory in a swing state like Wisconsin. Despite spending $20 million, Elon Musk doesn't appear have been able to buy the election. Crawford's victory as a campaigner who vocally rebukes the overturning of Roe v. Wade is a significant victory for women in Wisconsin in particular. The question remains, though, can we afford to keep rolling the dice on billionaires buying elections? Lewis, should Elon Musk be arrested for the way he is trying to buy elections?
Oh, Elon. I don't really know what we should do. I know he's been sued. And again, these lawsuits, I haven't even checked the results of them. There's too many lawsuits going around right now for whether it's Trump or his allies in any way. He's currently, I saw another one yesterday where, because do you remember when he promised money for people in Pennsylvania?
Yes.
Apparently he still owes some people, somebody there. So they're now suing him. The problem that we have here with this is that this is when you need like more independent bodies, right? Oh, you switched me. Sorry. I thought I was, because I'm producing at the same time. I saw something on the screen and I was like, oh, there's been a tech issue. Yeah. So the issue that we have is that Elon Musk doesn't care about consequences. Even if it is illegal what he's doing, whatever the consequences are going to be, it's not going to be criminal. It's going to be probably civil, or he's going to have to pay a fine or whatever he might be sued with. But the problem is with that, as we know, is that he has all the money in the world. So it doesn't matter, which, this is almost like a side topic, but this is where societies now, especially, I'd love to get rid of all the billionaires, but in the meantime, while they still exist, we need to see laws that come into place where when rich people get in trouble, that whatever their consequences are in terms of financial, it needs to be proportionate to who they are. So why is it, if the punishment for throwing trash, we are talking American, if for throwing rubbish on the floor or littering is, a £75 fine, whatever it might be, that's not good for somebody like myself. That's a lot of money, right? But for somebody who's really rich, that's not a lot of money. The same for things like parking tickets and all of these types of things. This should be proportionate. We have seen some of these laws come into place to regulate tech companies, like the EU have got some good policies in place where if you do so and so wrong, you will get fined 3% of your global revenue, not necessarily profits, revenue, like before profits. And that's good. That's quite a punishment. But if Elon Musk is going to get sued and he has to pay out $1 million or $2 million, it's nothing to him. These punishments for these types of people need to be proportionate to who they are, what resources and what money that they have. And because if not, they're not going to stop because they have no consequences.
Well, I mean, it's so funny how Musk and Republicans always bang on about George Soros. And it's like Elon Musk is doing everything they accuse George Soros of. And it's funny because they try and put the left and say, the left supports George Soros. I want to be very clear here. Actual leftists don't want to see billionaires exist. They should be taxed out of existence. It's not like we support George Soros. Liberals might do, but the left don't. And then they say, what about George Soros? Well, the point about George Soros is he's a very, very rich guy. but he's nowhere near as rich as Elon Musk. Elon Musk is the richest man in the world who's buying up the American election or American political system. George Soros is a philanthropist, right? And I don't think we should have a system based on philanthropy. But in the grand scheme of things, George Soros isn't that rich. But it's so funny how they cry about him, and Musk is literally doing that. And he's doing it so overtly. He's not even trying to hide it. It's insane stuff. But look, go on, I'll let you finish.
No, I was just going to say, but this is part of the right-wing pipeline that they've set up, right? They have said that all of the things that we have done are bad. That, you know, they make up these things that they'll talk about Soros, they'll talk about how the court systems and the legal systems and academia, all these things are against them. That foundation has been laid, and that is now in play in America, and it's obviously happening over here too. So when they come in and they do it, they say, no, we're not doing what they did, but we have to use the systems or go around them or do what they did to win. It's just an excuse so they can do it, which is what Trump is doing right now by going around the law, going around the Constitution, by everything that they've set up, right? He can happily attack all the US colleges and take their money off of them because his base believe that they're, you know, pro-Palestinian terrorists. The foundations have been laid so they can do whatever they want, and those foundations are already laid in the UK as well, so we need to be careful too.
Yep.
Luckily, we don't necessarily have anyone at that level interfering in politics over here, with the exception of Musk. Now, I'm glad that they had a little fallout on Twitter, Nigel and Elon, and Nigel's still kissing his ass. But ultimately, they still have loads of billionaire backers. Trump had over, I think it was 54 billionaire backers. But again, he's draining the swamp and he's anti-establishment. When the difference between the billionaires that Kamala had versus Trump, I think Kamala had like 5 more than Trump did. So he's got 50 billionaires on his side. She's got 60 billionaires on her side. And this is the world that we're living in.
Which again, by the way, a lot of them were saying on the right, whoa, look at Kamala Harris. She's got more billionaires than Trump. And again, speak to actual leftists and we say, that is bad. We don't like it when billionaires influence Republicans, and we don't like it when billionaires influence Democrats. So it was bad on Kamala's part and it was bad in the Democratic Party because both political parties are beholden to capital. But the left, the actual left, do not like that. The Bernie Sanders wing in America, his contributions are from ordinary donors. He doesn't have a super PAC. But again, that's obviously trying to conflate liberals and leftists. I do think, though, that this is a cause of celebration in a way, because Musk, who thinks he's entitled to the American political system, he lost. He flat out lost. But look, this isn't proof that the US isn't an oligarchy. It is. But I want to posit something to you. Might it, be because specifically Musk is pretty unpopular? Because polls show that. But that doesn't make money any less powerful. What are your thoughts? Do you think that Musk is actually a liability, or was it a fluke for democracy in this instance?
Musk is a liability, absolutely. This has been proven. He's only popular with that kind of like online type of right people. Most ordinary people who don't necessarily engage in social media, which is still a significant amount of people, they don't really like him. And obviously he is the bulldog right now for Donald Trump, right? This is a tactic that's used all over the world. I learned about the bulldog concept when I used to work in a supermarket, where the store manager was too much of a pussy essentially to be the bad guy. So he would use the deputy store manager to go and do all of his dirty work. And this is kind of what Elon Musk is doing right now. He is the fall guy and the bulldog for draining the swamp and, making all these cuts, which are having lots of negative effects and will continue to do so. And that's directed all the kind of hatred and dislike towards Musk. And it's almost like Trump isn't necessarily getting the shit for it. It's just kind of going to Musk. So at the same time, he's also the fall guy, but he's also the bulldog. A lot of people don't like him. A lot of people do not like him in any way. If I remember correctly, I was reading today as well that in the Wisconsin race, like a lot of like leaflets that were being funded by Musk and the campaign to give people money, his name was all over them. And apparently this put a lot of people off. And he actually may have had just a completely negative effect on this race just because of his direct involvement. And this is what a lot of kind of political analysts are saying as well. He is deeply unpopular.
Yeah, I think that's quite clear. I think we'll go to some comments, but obviously, if you've just joined us, we had a massive issue with tech. That actually, Lewis was our producer today. He wasn't our guest. Noffel was our guest, but he couldn't. Basically, he was using a different computer and it wasn't working out. He will be back on the show, absolutely. So, Lewis, you're going to try and do some comments for us, aren't you?
So I wasn't able to save any. So
Yeah.
while I'm getting up some of the lovely gifts that we've had during the show. If you can look at some comments too and start flagging some, that would be great.
Mhm.
But in the meantime, we had lovely Specs Being Farmer gift 5
Thank you so
membership.
much,
So
Specs. Again, you're in there quite a lot. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
thank you very much, Specs. And then we had Zeke as well, gifting 10. Thank you so much,
Thank
Zeke.
you, Zeke.
Often giving those to lots of people who are watching. It's cool because like on the streaming software that we have as well, we get to see exactly who those memberships go to as well. So thank you very much. Did you manage to find any other comments while I was looking at those?
Well, I've got one actually, and it's funny enough. It is from Noffle. So at least Noffle gets to participate in some way. Hi Noffle. Hopefully you sort out your tech issues and you 100% will be back on the show. Let's go through Noffles, and if you want to read that out, and I'm going to try and find some more.
Yeah, so Elon Musk is seen as too foreign for American politics. Oh, the irony is not lost on him, a South African immigrant. Yeah, this is so true. I think you were talking about this previously as well, Curtis, with me about like the old like neocons like Bannon and stuff like that, like the horrible people, but they don't like Musk because he is this South African guy. They don't want people like that involved in their politics, and there is this split between like the Bannon type of people and the techno feudalists like Elon Musk.
Well, I think as well, what rubs people the wrong way is that for people like Steve Bannon, like, okay, so Musk is a white supremacist. Obviously, that's the case. Steve Bannon is a white supremacist plus nationalist, like full-blown nationalist, where when it came to the scandal of the HB1 visas, or was it H1B visas, where basically you had Elon Musk defending these visas, and people were saying, well, I thought you were about American jobs. I thought you were about America first. And now you're getting a bunch of foreigners coming here on special visas. And when push came to shove, where did Elon Musk and Donald Trump stand? Did they stand with the nationalists and the base, or did they stand with capital? And they stood with capital. They said, no, we're gonna support these visas. And I think that's part of where Bannon absolutely despises Musk, is that at the end of the day, Musk, because he's the richest man in the world and Trump's a billionaire, the first and foremost principle is wealth and capital. That will always be number one. Their racism is strong, but they like their wealth a little bit more. Steve Bannon and people like him are more like they I don't want to say principled. It's the correct term to use, but it feels icky saying it about a piece of shit like Bannon. But they're more principled in their views that they will be against it even if it hurts the economy. They don't care. And I think that ties into it.
Sorry, I was looking at comments. I think there will be a split at some point. Obviously, there was the rumor, was it 2 days ago, that Musk was no longer going to be an advisor, but then they reaffirmed that that wasn't true. But ultimately, Musk is in a lot of trouble right now from the company side of things. His obviously stocks down like 35% since the beginning of the year. All of his investors are going crazy. I heard a story earlier about, I think it was like the New York... like the city of New York, like the pension funds that they control for their workers, they only invested like $300 million in Tesla stock like a year ago or something. And apparently they've lost $300 million in the last year or something like that. So you've got all these investors who are going crazy. I think one of Tesla's biggest investors did like an interview the other day, and he was just saying like the brand may be irreparably damaged. There may not be any coming back from this. I think I saw like 80-90% sales down in places like Germany. You've got 17 Teslas got destroyed in Rome the other day at a Tesla showroom. His business is spiraling. I just don't see how they're ever going to recover under the current climate. So at some point, something is going to push, and he's no longer going to be within that sphere. I kind of hope he just doesn't just leave because he's scared about losing his money and fortune. I hope there is some sort of like argument or split between these people because we need them to fight each other. That's all we can hope for.
FAFO. Fuck around and find out. We know that Trump absolutely hates Elon Musk. We've known that. You could see it on the campaign trail. Here's the thing, though. Will Trump get rid of Elon? I don't think so because wealth, power. Musk has that. And I think that's what you're alluding to about they try to sort of push Musk to the side, but they can't. The guy has the American political system in his pocket. Donald Trump is the little bitch. Now, Musk is a little bitch. Like, definitionally, he is a little bitch. But Donald Trump is the little bitch of Elon Musk. They're kind of each other's bitches, really. But they're subservient to power and wealth. And I don't think that's ever going to... That's what binds them together. I think
There
if
has been
Musk,
some issues, though.
there's been some issues, but I think if Musk was paired with... Like, say Steve Bannon was the US president, I think Musk would have been gone because, as I was saying earlier, Bannon is wedded to his principles of, extreme nationalism, right? Whereas Trump is acting like a fascist, right? But I don't think, like, deep in his DNA, he's a fascist. I think he just wants power because he's a really rich guy. I don't think he's a man full of hatred, but I don't think he's principally a man full of hatred compared to some of the real MAGA people. I truly believe that. That doesn't mean I think Trump's a good guy, by the way. Of course not. He's very much right wing, but I think replace Trump with someone who's more extreme and ideological. That's probably the best term to use it. I don't think Trump is quite as ideological in these right wing policies. It's money that he cares about. Then I think that is what binds Musk and Trump together. I think they're both racist. I think Elon Musk is a Nazi. I think they're both fascists. I think they're going to push white nationalist policies, absolutely. But fundamentally, I think they're both ideologically driven by power and wealth. And some other people MAGA aren't. And if there was a different president who's more wedded to MAGAism, if you want to, for want of a better term, you would see more splits. But I don't think, and that doesn't mean I don't think splits could happen in the future. But right now, I think their shared love for power and wealth subsedes their differences.
Yeah, just if anyone can hear banging, someone's decided to let off fireworks right outside my apartment. So
I've been hearing fireworks loads lately. I'm like, what's the occasion? I saw it. I heard it the other day, at midday. I'm thinking, what's going on? Why do people need fireworks midday on a Monday? So strange. If people are going to enlighten me, maybe there's a reason. I don't know.
No, there's been some splits recently. There's been some differences between Marco Rubio and Elon Musk because Musk has been trying to do cuts to the State Department, and he's been apparently safeguarding them. I saw today that RFK said that Musk has gone too far with the health department cuts, and apparently he's actually reinstated some programs because they were getting rid of some crazy programs at the State Department. At the Department of Health. So there is some splits there. Obviously, we'll see what happens. I did start some other things. I wanted to bring this. Oh, sorry, you. Sorry, you put one of Zeke's comments up then, didn't you? I just got rid of it. Sorry, what was it?
It is this one. I mean, that's the goal. Obviously, we would. It's unfortunate we had our tech issues at the beginning of the show. And that is like I can't remember who said it. Maybe was it Rachel? But she did say you're doing like TV production in your own homes, and I do think we need to reflect like what we're doing is really good quality on no budget. Like for transparency, we get YouTube paid us 180 quid last month. On average, we get about £300 from YouTube a month, which goes into a pot which only pays for like train tickets, some equipment. It's not a wage. It's not a we can't buy industry standard stuff. We can't afford a studio. So I think what we're doing, I think our cameras look beautiful and the setup looks beautiful. I think what we're doing is still really, really good. And despite the tech issues, I think we're doing a good job. But I really like your comment though, saying you believe in us and want us to be one of the giants. Absolutely. I would love for Turn Left to be one of the big ones out there. But you can only do that if you subscribe. And I know you already subscribe, but tell other people about us.
One of the issues, when I say we, I don't mean Turn Left necessarily. I just mean like left media in general, is that most of the right are dominating because they're able to make money, grift, and get attention by lying, scaremongering, and doing all of these things, right? And unfortunately, we have our biases and stuff like that, and sometimes we can be a bit doom and gloom. But ultimately, I know, even though we have our biases, we are relatively objective in what we're saying. We know what we're talking about is well researched. We know what we're talking about is logical in our own way. And it's not to say that if our way is logical, that other people's can't be who oppose us. That's not what we're saying. But they can make so much money, the right, because they are grifters, they are liars, they are fearmongers. It's like, your children are going to be trans if we don't stop this. By the way, buy my protein shakes. Yeah. And it's we don't have that, and we don't push that. And this is what's the hardest thing. It is hard to be left and to make money doing this. It is really, really hard.
It's not just that right-wing politics serves the algorithms, and it does. Algorithms favor right-wing politics because, again, like, oh my God, they're transing your kids at school. Like, obviously it's bullshit, but that's such a insane thing to say that people are intrigued by it. Even if they're watching it knowing it's a load of bullshit, they might click on it, and that just boosts the algorithm, right? It's kind of not as sexy to be like, well, here's the actual facts. But there's another reason, and it's because right-wing media is an industry. Like, there's no big billionaire backers behind Turn Left or Navarro or the Canary or other left-wing outlets, because what billionaire is going to want to go, I like Turn Left. I mean, Curtis Daly says billionaires shouldn't exist. I'm going to throw him 100 grand. You don't see that. There's a reason why Tim Pool gets hundreds of thousands of pounds from other foreign states. Why?
Russia.
So, like, there's obviously that as well. And then people might be like, oh, you're moaning you're being hard done by. It is objectively correct to be a grifter. I mean, you could be a grifter on the left, but it doesn't pay well. But to be on the right is politics and media on easy mode. I guaranteed if I were to announce that I left the left and started my own YouTube channel for right-wing politics, within 1 year, I'd have 50,000 subscribers, not 5 years and took us 23,000 subscribers, because this is building a left-wing media thing is proper grassroots. It's really from the ground up. It's not like, oh, some big right-wing influencer decided to share our stuff and boost us because it helps, continue the system that we currently live under.
Yeah, and also as well, it comes with that set of morals that, you want to try and keep up to as much as you can, in a sense of, sometimes morals sometimes have to be bent or seen a different way. But I made a video on my TikTok recently where I explained that someone offered to help me work with the Labour Party a few months ago. They wanted help with their social media. The MP, who it was, is actually one of the good ones. Unfortunately, I just didn't want to put my name next to anyone associated to the Labour Party. I couldn't do it, and I won't do it. And right now I'm unemployed. I just couldn't take the money. I couldn't take the opportunity because I won't put my name next to the Labour Party, whereas people on the right will take money from anywhere and anything. They don't care, and they will compromise all their morals for it. And they put themselves in a self-radicalizing system too. Anyway,
you had another comment you want to bring up?
I put a few more. So I actually wanted to bring this up from Jacqueline. I heard that the top 3 richest billionaires combined are richer than the next 15 richest billionaires combined. I don't know about that, Jacqueline, but some data did recently come out, and this is why I chose your comment. I think it was the Forbes 100 or whatever like that, but they don't just analyze the top 100, they analyze all the rich people in the world. And somebody, was it them or somebody else, took the data and found that basically the top, I think it was like 3,200 richest people in the world now have more wealth than every single country's GDP combined, with the exception of America and China. Obviously, America and China are a massive chunk of that, but you've still got another 190 something countries who 3,200 people are richer than, which is just, nobody should be richer than a state. I'm sorry.
I mean, I remember
it's insane.
I remember when years ago we were talking about individuals. I think it was like 60 individuals had more wealth than the bottom half of humanity could fit them on a coach, which was an insane figure. But now we're in a situation where, as you just pointed out, you can put a collection of the world's richest, and they are richer than some GDPs of countries. It's such a high number that it's hard to almost try to project onto people. These are just numbers and words. What does that mean? It means that inequality is absolutely destroying us, and we cannot continue. This is not about the politics of envy, saying, oh, I'm really sad that someone's richer than me. It's not that. It's the fact that if you have billionaires that own so much wealth, they buy up everything else. This is only going to continue. I mean, we're going to have the world's first trillionaire before we end poverty. Just imagine that, right? We're going to have the world's first trillionaire before a state grows a backbone and says, no more homelessness, no more poverty. What does that tell you about our economic system?
Exactly.
Thank you, Hannah. Just become a member. Really appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I put that up. I was looking for more comments. Thank you so much, Hannah. I think this is actually quite interesting, so I want to make a point about this. Like, Elon Musk thinks he's Bruce Wayne. I think it's probably more of a Tony Stark type thing.
He really wants to be Tony Stark, but Tony
Tony
Stark's got Riz.
That's the thing. Elon Musk can't buy the one thing that he wants, which is he wants people to think he's cool and think and like him. But ultimately, anybody who gives him any sort of positive attention is only based on the fact of how much money and power that he has. It's nothing to do with his personality. But the reason why I actually brought this comment up, because switching it up slightly. What a lot of people need to understand, I can't remember what show it was I was watching the other day, where it was like a cheesy cartoon thing, and it was just like this person was like, I am evil and I love being evil. It was cheesy, but when you think about it, like, nobody actually necessarily thinks that they're evil, right? I don't
No,
think
of course not.
Elon Musk doesn't like want to be a bad guy. Like, he thinks logically
he's
in his
saving
mind that
America.
what he's doing and what he's pursuing is for the good of what makes sense to him. And we do sometimes have this idea that, we're the good guys, they're the bad guys and stuff like this. But we have got to a point now where these people who think like this, these MAGA people who have also absorbed the far right wing into the country, into their new sphere as well. Like MAGA, the MAGA people over in the UK all talk about the same stories that happen in the US. They have made them think that logically what is happening and who we are, that we are evil, that we are the bad guys. And this is something that people need to remember, is that when we think about people being racism is bad, we objectively know that, but they've got to a point where their demonization of a certain group of people in their mind is logical, because it's like, it's not racist because it's logical. So they think that what they're supporting is something that's almost good. And that's the thing people need to remember.
No one is a villain in their own story, because the motivation is you're trying to save things. Even Hitler thought he was a hero. He thought what he was doing was right. And that's what makes it harder, actually, when you're talking about those with extreme political views. That you can't say you're a bad person, you're an asshole, because they believe they're heroes. It's not about, obviously we're in the game of turning people left and convincing people, but when you get to that extreme, it's not about convincing these fuckers anymore. It's about shunning them and defeating them and winning. JMN, despite watching numerous videos on the matter, I'm still not sure what tariffs actually are. For some reason, my brain just can't retain it. So that was at the beginning. I kind of want to talk about it, but do you want to take over that one?
Yeah, sure. So I picked this one because Jamie asked, so I thought I'd try and explain in the most simple way. A tariff is a cost that you put on a good. It could even be a service that essentially comes to your country, comes to your border. When it goes through customs, a tariff is applied to it, and that is charged at the organization, the company, the purchaser of that item. That can be direct to shipper, so not necessarily a company pays it, but it can also be a company in itself. So when we buy however many t-shirts from China, our government still might put tariffs on that. We still have small tariffs of most countries, because it's just another way that the government can make money, but it's usually something that's not going to affect the price of the item. It can be just a few percent. And now every country has the right to put whatever tariff they want on whatever item. So Donald Trump is now putting the cost of bringing any item into his country up by different amounts for every country to try and force better trade agreements and bully and get power over these countries. So it's just simply an extra cost on an item that a government applies to it coming into the country. I think that's right.
But the loser here is people. So
they usually pass the cost off to the consumer.
Yeah, of course. If you're a company who has to pay these extra tariffs, you're going to increase your prices. And there was a lot of sort of wake up moments from Trump voters in America when they were talking about tariffs, and no, the company pays for the tariffs. Like, yes, and then where do they put the cost on? To you. So if you're buying something abroad and it's suddenly more expensive, that is because of tariffs. And a lot of them are like, oh shit.
Yeah.
One thing go on.
I was going to say, one thing that I didn't think about today as well until I heard somebody on a TikTok talking about it, is that if you remember during COVID, when we had lots of supply chain issues and certain products did get messed up and they had to put the price of certain products because supply chains, this happens. This has recently happened to olive oil because of bad harvest. The price massively shot up, right? So what happened is that they sneakily put prices up on other products, and they just try to use that as an excuse to say, oh no, like the price on this has to go up too, and the price on this has to go up too, even though those supply chains weren't affected. We're expecting this to happen as well. So even though there are going to be loads of products that like might be made in America, might be made in the UK, and they don't actually face tariffs, that the companies are going to try and price gouge, because this is what they do.
Well,
they're going to use tariffs as an excuse, the same way that they used Ukraine, COVID, to put prices up for things that weren't affected.
It's setting a precedent, and they want consent to increase prices. A good way. I mean, I've got a comment I want to show in a second, but the point I'm going to make is relevant. The Nintendo Switch 2 has just been announced. I was thinking about maybe getting it. I feel a little bit cold about it now. And the problem is because of the prices. Now, the system itself, I think it's going to be in UK prices, 395 quid for the system. It's not too bad. The price of the games, though, Mario Kart, the game that's going to come out, upwards of $90 per game. Why are they doing that? No game is that much, especially Nintendo Switch, which, let's be honest, in terms of hardware, isn't quite as advanced as PlayStation 5, right? They're doing that. They're going to slap on these $90 prices. What's going to happen? Other companies are going to go, well, let's increase our prices too. So they're setting a precedent. So any PlayStation 5 game or Xbox game you buy in the future or PlayStation 6, the prices of these games are going to rocket because they're going to look at Nintendo and go, Nintendo got away with these prices. We want in on the action. And what you've perfectly described with tariffs. There's a lot of companies are going to whack at the prices and people are just going to assume it's tariffs. They're setting the precedent and they're going to get consensus from people. It's really, really wild stuff. This comment from Les Watts.
Oh, I just wanted to add one more thing really quickly on that.
Yeah.
More than half the games that you buy nowadays as well, you need an internet connection to play them. Which
Download
also means
only, live service.
Which means you don't own it.
Yeah,
you don't own the game.
It's part of the and I love to bring up streaming services like Netflix, right? They're actually giving you a worse product. I was watching this YouTuber, this fantastic video. I can't remember the name of the guy, and he was like, "I used to pirate films, right?" A lot of people did that. Pirating was quite a big thing, and then the introduction of things like Netflix came in, and it actually disincentivized a lot of people from pirating because at the time, Netflix, and that's what happens when a new service product comes to the market. Of course, they make things really cheap. Netflix used to be really, really cheap. The quality was good enough where people are like, I'm no longer going to download videos for free or films for free because I want to get a virus or whatever. People felt like it was worth paying for it because it was like £5 per month, right? Netflix is password sharing policy. Again, really, really good because people were doing that. What's happened now? Now, because there's so many other streaming services on the market, they're now out competing each other. Netflix has increased their prices. They're also doing tiers where certain tiers now got ads on them. What's happening? Pirating has now gone back up. People are going, well, I stopped pirating because it was worth it, but fuck you guys. You're now charging extortionate prices for a worse product. So this YouTuber who said he used to pirate stuff, went to Netflix, he did a comparison. He said, look, I've downloaded this HD film from the internet and I've got it on Netflix. And he compared the quality. He said the free one, which I didn't pay a fucking penny for, was excellent quality. The Netflix quality was better. You're expecting me to pay for a service that's worse. And this is the situation we're in. Gaming is getting far, far worse because what's happening now is they love these download onlys. Even right, I've bought Switch games and I've bought the physical box because I like to have the box. I like to own things, right? Bought the box, open it up. There's no game inside. There's a little leaflet saying go onto the Switch store and download it and use a code. And it's part of the economy we're in, which is they're renting property out to you. You don't own it. They can pull it whenever they want. And live service, they can ruin the game whenever you want. You no longer own anything anymore.
Yeah, I think it was, someone can correct me in the comments if they know, but I think it's Tesla. Like when you buy a Tesla, it has features built into it that you don't have access to unless you pay more money.
It can shut you off as well.
The comparison that I always use is imagine buying a house with 3 bedrooms, but you were only allowed access to 2, and to pay 3 more, you then have to either pay a monthly fee to access your 3rd bedroom, or you have to pay an extra fee on top of it. This is the world that we're living in now. You're buying products which actually have more in them, but they're holding it back.
And this kind of practice was, especially in the gaming industry, was very much dissuaded. People hated that, but now because these companies have a monopoly in the market, you kind of got no choice. I mean, if you want to play your favorite Mario Kart game, you kind of like, I've got to pay these prices. So I've got there's no external force stopping this from happening. I really wanted to bring up this comment from Les Watts because I think it's a perfect one-liner on feudalism. It's really good. So Les Watts says, under feudalism, the consumption of the ruling class was finite. Under capitalism, it never stops. And this is a really good explanation as to why we went from feudalism to capitalism. It's true. Feudalism, there was a finite consumption. And there were a lot of, they wouldn't have been called capitalists at the time, but a lot of capitalists who were saying feudalism is actually dampening growth. We want to expand the markets, and basically we want to grow everything. And we can't do that under feudalism. And that is how we transitioned to capitalism, because feudalism was literally holding everything back. And when you get to that situation, systems fall. Capitalism, not really early capitalism, but industrial capitalism was an era where it really propelled countries. Of course, with that came colonialism and came exploitation, of course, but it really propelled industrial nations. We saw a growth of the middle class, no thanks to obviously unions and redistributive policies under that. But of course, it was incredible for innovation, technological development, and growth. But now, obviously, capitalism is holding things back, where, as we alluded to earlier with that insurance guy, he's now saying that capitalism is destroying everything. So, Les, absolutely incredible comment. You probably said it better than I did. That is basically a short explanation as to why we went from feudalism to capitalism.
I just want to mention this is very well quickly, because I haven't read up on this. I've just heard about it a little bit more. It's to do with tariffs. It's about like how Hoover brought in tariffs, and famously that just didn't work out. So I was just taking this extract. So the last time US tariffs were this high, it was after President Herbert Hoover signed into a law that was controversial called the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Bill of 1930, which was obviously around the Wall Street crash, which saw tariffs on many imported goods averaging nearly 40%. The impact of Hoover's tariffs were, as predicted, which have been predicted now by hundreds of economists, highly damaging to the US, with estimates of imported goods, many of which were needed by US industry and commerce, plummeting by nearly half. Hoover's protectionism might have appealed to staunch Republicans, but it ruined his standing among his party's progressives. Yeah, he messed up, and this is exactly what's happening now, and it's what's going to continue to happen. What are we going to do? Ow! Sorry, my cat. My cat. I've got shorts on, and my cat Jojo just decided to wake up, start meowing at me, and scratch my legs.
Someone in the chat said I was a gamer. I just want to disclosure, I wouldn't consider myself a gamer. I mean, I have a Nintendo Switch Lite. I still have a PS4. I don't have a PS5. I'm not one of these people who plays games often, but I'm someone who likes to every now and again relax and play a bit of Zelda on the Switch and Mario Kart.
I have an addictive personality, so I used to game a lot, and sometimes I gamed up for 30, 40 hours occasionally. So I no longer play games because I can't, because I would get addicted to them. What games did you
used to play, actually?
Oh, very much RPG stuff, like Elder Scrolls Online, just all these types of things.
So I was never into those sort of fantasy games.
I'm a big fantasy geek. I'm currently reading the Wheel of Time books, Robert Jordan. I'm sure somebody's read them in the chat. And I'm also watching the show. It's very good.
So yeah, my partner, she's massively into books, and she's massively into.
She reads them really fast as well.
Oh god, what number of books is she on now? She reads so much and so quickly. I'm quite a slow reader, partly because the books I read are non-fiction. They're political and economic books. They're not exactly thrilling. Sometimes it can take me weeks, maybe months.
This is the only thing we should be reading.
Absolutely. I love that cover. What cover is that? The Communist Manifesto?
No, this is Terry Eagleton doing his like thoughts and stuff on Marx.
Oh, that's cool. One to look out for is what's his name? David Harvey. Is that his name? David Harvey? Professor David Harvey. He studies Karl Marx's entire life. Really good at sort of breaking things down, because Marx is not an easy person to understand. I mean, I've read the first 2 chapters of Capital, and my brain is.
I've got so many things I need to read right now. I found this in a secondhand bookstore. See if it'll show on camera. Searching for Socialism: The Project of the Labour New Left, from Ben to Corbyn.
You wrote that one. I can't see the cover there.
This was Leo Panitch and Colin
yeah, because he wrote Parliamentary Socialism as well. He's very good.
And also just a more interesting one, Empire Land, would recommend. Just basically how the empire affected pretty much everything.
Well, I put up a post on our community tab. I think we should start doing that. And I did like a like my book of the month, which was The Trading Game by Gary Stevenson. I'd love to see people's recommendations in the chat, actually.
Oh, I've got The Trading Game, I think.
Have you got it? Have you not read it?
I just haven't read it. I'm really bad.
It's like a biography. So I literally read that in like 2 days. It's really interesting how it's like a rags to riches story, right? But through his trading, basically through the wealth he made through trading, he was like, inequality is a problem. I'm making money off inequality. Jojo wants to give their their book recommendations.
He's up early. He usually sleeps for another hour or so, and he gets fed a little bit later on.
Richard Wolff, Richard Murphy as well suggests those books. Should we wrap it up though, because it is 9:15?
Yeah. All I can say is that just over the last couple of hours, I've just seen some extra news that many Republicans are starting to talk out about Trump. We've got Ted Cruz, who's not happy.
Let them fight. Let them fight. We love to see it. Thank you, Lewis, for coming on sort of like last minute due to tech issues. I really appreciate that. Nice work on doing sort of the guesting and producing at the same time. I want to thank everyone who's tuned in, but that is all we have time for. It's been lovely weather this weekend, so hopefully where you are sat, it's nice weather for you. Hopefully the weekend's gonna have nice weather. I want to thank everyone who tuned in and everyone who contributed to the YouTube memberships. We really, really appreciate that. Remember, we are an organization that is completely voluntary, and as you saw with the tech issues at the beginning, we're not exactly a high budget organization. So if you can, in any way, you can help us grow. You can like the stream, which is really good for the algorithm. You can share our content. You can subscribe. You can tell everyone in real life about us, whether you're at a protest or at the pub or whatever, friends and family, tell people about Turn Left. And also, if you can, you can go to our website, turnleftmedia.co.uk/support. There you can support us on our Patreon for as little as £3 per month, or there's another link for a one-off donation. Again, alternatively, you could support us with YouTube memberships for 99p. I'm Curtis Daly. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. And I will see you next Wednesday, but don't worry, our next show will be on Monday. Thank you so much, and I will see you next time.
Support independent media. Support social justice that's there on social media. Thank you. Turn Left.